Hey, welcome everybody to today's Everything. We've got a exciting episode. I know I say that about every single one of them, but I'm actually really excited about this one because it's been something I've been thinking about personally myself for quite a minute now, and I know Mike has been thinking about it recently as well. So yeah, we are going to be talking about home defense and guns and other forms of home protection and probably a variety of other topics with Jay here, friend of Reggie Orr. We just had him on the show and we were talking about him. And yeah, Jay, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, so Jay Bennett, met Reggie through Millennium MMA, been in and out of there since probably 2006, 2005, 2006, when I was fighting, before I got old and fat. Before that, I did some time in the Marine Corps, went overseas a few times, did Iraq, Japan, Philippines, stuff like that. I got out and started working in the protection industry, worked as a bodyguard for a long time. At the same time, I was teaching at a high threat protection school down in San Diego. We were teaching, shooting, combatives, driving, counter surveillance, stuff like that. I went back overseas on the private side as well, went back to Iraq a few times. Been down to South America, Colombia, El Salvador, Mexico, that type of stuff. Been 5 or 6 years doing that. And recently got hired on with Glock as a firearms instructor for them. So a lot of experience in the protection world and the firearms industry as well. And finally a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu, taking me forever.
Hey.
Yeah.
Congrats, man.
Yeah. So I was slow taking to it. I was more of a wrestler, kickboxer, but I'm finally making some progress now. I think 2 years ago I got my brown belt. So.
Oh, nice. So you're still training, huh, Jay?
Not like I should, especially nonsense. I travel a lot for work, man, so it's been kind of difficult. I got to squeeze in days whenever I can. A lot of shadow boxing, a lot of drilling, a lot of watching videos, and then I try to sneak in the weekends and stuff like that when I can.
Yeah.
Chipping away. Finally.
Awesome, man. Yeah,
cool.
That's awesome, man. So, was was that your first introduction to shooting?
No, I grew up in the desert, up in Victorville, Hesperia area. So I grew up shooting, the wrong way, out in the desert shooting, beer cans and stuff like that. I was pretty familiar, but in the Marine Corps, that's what kind of, really, really caught my attention.
Yeah, like honed it in, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was kind of a nerd kid. I read all the Marine Corps, Scout, Sniper, Field Manual, all that stuff when I was like 13, but I didn't know what I thought I knew. And I got to wake up call.
Yeah. That's cool. So what do you do with Glock for training now? You were mentioning that.
Yeah, so my job with them, essentially Glock's broken into two portions. Glock Inc. is what makes all the firearms. They manufacture the firearms and stuff like that. Glock Professional, we're in charge of the training, and the Glock Sports Shooting Foundation. So Glock actually has its own shooting sports foundation, so it's like a competitive shooting league for them. It's really awesome program. So if you're a Glock owner, you can show up these competitions. They'll have guys there that will fix any problems with your guns, replace parts. They raffle off guns. If you win the match, you get a gun from them. It's a pretty awesome organization. And on the training side, we have a bunch of former LA military guys, some really great instructors. We'll go to different military and law enforcement agencies. We teach responsible civilians just how to use that Glock more efficiently. So we have a couple different classes. We have the armorers course, which will teach you how to take the gun apart, fix it.
Uh-oh, we got an echo.
Sorry.
How did that happen?
I just assume anytime something happens to the computer, it's my fault because I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So
no, you're good. I think we're just having some technical issues with the audio, but we're good. So you can show up for these trainings if you're a Glock owner, right?
Yeah, you have to do registration, do kind of a really brief background thing, make sure you're not a felon or something crazy, a terrorist or a felon or something like that. But we have the armorers course, we have the operators course, which is a 2-day shooting package. We have the instructor workshop, which is a 3-day shooting package. You show up and shoot for 3 days, learn some really great stuff. And if you, I don't know if you guys have show notes, but I could put the link for that in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything you talk about, you can just send a link over to me. We'll put them in our show notes for any of the guests if they're curious and want to learn about it. It'll be on our blog on todayseverything.com. So we'll put that up there.
Yeah.
So one of the big questions we were talking about, and I think there's a lot of debate out there, is what's a good first gun? And then when I start doing the research for that, like what's the best first gun for you to own? There's always these follow-up questions. It's always, what is it for? What's your experience? What's the background? Is there a straight answer, or is it just, it doesn't, I mean, there's no real straight answer.
Yeah, man, it's kind of like picking a car. It's like, do you want to pick? What are you going to be doing with it? Do you need a pickup truck for work? Do you need a Corolla that's going to be dependable and get you back and forth, that type of thing. Is it something you're not going to use often? How much are you willing to invest?
Mm-hmm.
I have a buy once, cry once mentality. I learned that the hard way. I've gone through
Buy one, cry one.
Yeah, buy once, cry once, man. So buy the right gun. Do the research the first time. For home defense, there's a lot of different thoughts about it. Some people say a shotgun's best for home defense. Some people say a pistol you can keep in the nightstand. For a long time, my go-to has been a Mossberg 500. Shotgun. Pretty comfortable with it. I've done a lot of work with it, a lot of studying with it. But I also have an AR. I also have pistol. So
Right.
I would say my favorite platform, if I had to pick just one, would be an AR. AR.
Yeah.
You can do everything with it. There's some concern for home defense about over penetration, but you'll have the same concern with using slugs or pistols. Not so much over penetration, but they take a lot more work to be efficient with. So the AR platform for me is probably, if I'm thinking home defense and shit hits the fan, I'd probably go with an AR.
That makes sense. I was hearing, I love to do my research before I do any of this stuff, but I was hearing a pistol round AR was being considered like one of those ones that everybody should have because the over penetration they were talking about, one of those pistol ARs is a really good one.
Yeah, pistol caliber carbines, they call them. That's a really solid choice. It's starting to become popular now. It's really starting to pick up speed now. It's definitely a solid one. I'm such a rifle guy from my time in the military and stuff like that. I'm comfortable with 5.56 with the round, what its capabilities were, how it performs in the body, how it performs, otherwise. So I'm pretty comfortable with it. A pistol caliber carbine actually is a pretty good choice for home defense. It's something I hadn't considered yet, so it's a pretty good idea actually.
Oh yeah, like I said, I just like to do my research. I actually don't know shit about guns, so I know how to shoot a little bit. I shot when I was younger, but like you, I'm guarantee all the wrong kind of shooting or training, which brings up another good point. Like, if you were going to get that training, like because the type of gun, like you said, you're okay with the 5.56 round. Was that what it? Yeah. If you're going to get that kind of training where you could use those guns that, somebody might talk about the over penetration or the issues, what would be the best way to do that?
Are you talking about to seek training? Like
Yeah.
To find training. Yeah, it's kind of like picking a jiu-jitsu gym, I know you said we talked a little bit before this and you talked about the gym you came from, kind of fed you to the sharks type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Instructors a lot the same way. You got to kind of vet them, make sure that they have a background in firearms, make sure they have some experience, make sure they're teaching relevant material. Okay, there's people out there that are teaching stuff that's pretty antiquated, old stuff. Like some, it's like when the UFC came out. And all of a sudden, all the kung fu and all the taekwondo and all that stuff kind of fell to the wayside. Yeah, exactly. There's still a lot of that old stuff out there. So just make sure you're getting an instructor that's relevant, that's got the most updated material. He's teaching relevant stuff, and make sure he's palatable.
Yeah.
Somebody that you can spend, $400 or $500 on and spend a couple days with, and you're going to want to listen to the guy after the second day's up.
Yeah.
So just betting, and it's really easy nowadays with the internet. You can type in the instructor's name or the name of his organization and go, okay, well, here's a couple reviews, and it'll usually tell you, there'll be a bunch of people saying, oh, this guy's the greatest, and every once in a while you see something like, hey, he did this that was really unsafe, or he did this that I really didn't like. Those are the guys you want to steer clear of. And there's some really good websites out there to talk about training. Right now is probably the best time for instructors ever. We're at hopefully the tail end of the longest war in our history. We've got a lot of guys coming out of service that that put a lot of time downrange and learned a lot of the valuable lessons, and they can get that to you guys, pretty cheap. Training's pretty cheap considering what it is.
Yeah, life-saving. It's kind of like, I never thought about it in a jiu-jitsu way. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know when I first started, right? Like with jiu-jitsu and picking all the wrong kinds of gyms. But after more exposure, I was able to kind of pinpoint like what a good gym versus a bad gym even look like. Are there, other than checking online reviews, are there other ways maybe that if somebody doesn't know that they could figure out?
Yeah, try calling and talking to the guy. A lot of times email back and forth with them. Talk to him. I mean, if you're going to spend the money on it, it's worth, it's worth the extra email that you go back and forth with the guy and say, hey, I'm really concerned about my training. If he blows you off, then maybe it's not the right guy, Or, if we're doing pistol training, you go to a company like Glock, SIG. There's some really big companies that have a good reputation. They're not going to really lead you astray. Their guys are usually pretty solid. But yeah, just put in the work, and if you're not comfortable with a guy, just don't do it. If you get a bad vibe from a guy, firearms industry is not the place to take any chances. Just move on to the next guy. Just do the research, like buying a car. A little bit easier.
Makes sense.
It's like going to jiu-jitsu. The first time I went into a jiu-jitsu gym, I think was in 2000. And I'd seen a bunch of Kimuras, I'd seen a bunch of guillotines, and I thought I had it figured out. And I went in that gym and got my ass handed to me, So we have feelings about firearms that we've seen it enough, we feel comfortable about it. But the reality is, it's worth the extra time in training, And how much, if you're using it for home defense, how much are you willing to pay for training? Well, how much is your life worth, your family's life worth, how big of an investment is it really? How big of a responsibility and an investment is it to buy a firearm?
Yeah, I definitely see it as a responsibility. I also we're fairly modern. My house, my wife actually is a better shooter than I am, and we both see it as a responsibility to try to learn how to both do jiu-jitsu, and Hannah's now training with Mike and doing Muay Thai. But it's the same thing with guns, right? Like, it's still a responsibility. Like, you can't always trust everything that's going on in the world. You have to protect your family first.
Yeah, everything from petty crime. People, especially now, people are pretty desperate. Nobody's working. Things are bad for everybody right now. That's when you're going to see an uptick in the rise of home invasion, stuff like that. And then when this thing opens back up, we're likely to see an uptick in stuff like domestic terrorism, lone wolf terrorism, get big groups back together. And there's people out there that want to disrupt that. There's people out there that want to kill us because of the freedoms we enjoy and where we are, where we live in the world. So, it's worth, the way I always think about it is I have a 4-year-old girl, and as great as all the law enforcement and first responder guys and gals out there are, they're responding to something happening. So the reality is, my family's health and well-being is my responsibility first. And if I'm going to take that on my shoulders, if I'm going to bear that responsibility, I should be doing it the best way possible. And unfortunately, right now, having a firearm is probably the best way to defend your family.
Yeah. Since you're trained both, you're a brown belt and you do gun defense, do you think for home defense, you should start with jujitsu, or you think you should start training how to shoot a firearm first?
I'd say they're both worth it. You know,
Both at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, if you can afford it, I'd say invest in a firearm. Train when you can. I mean, you don't have to go to training every week. You don't have to go to training every weekend. 2 classes a year, and then you can do just about everything that you would learn in a class. You can do most of that stuff at home. Dry firing, clear the weapon out, make sure it's safe, make sure it's pointed in a safe direction, and do all the things that you practice dry, kind of like you would visualize going through a fight or shadow box and stuff like that. As long as you're safe, you can practice most of that stuff at home. Sneak to the range every other weekend. It's really not that expensive to be prepared with a firearm. You know, a couple classes a year, a lot of dry fire, some range trips, you know, once or twice a month, and that's about as prepared as you need. As far as jiu-jitsu, there's a whole lot of things you can learn from jiu-jitsu. You know, the humility that comes with it, the physicality, being comfortable in uncomfortable circumstances. All that stuff's invaluable, man. And it's helped me. It's helped me in the fight world. It's helped me in life. It's helped me as an instructor. I mean, it's been invaluable to me. It's a big reason I've been luck, and that's been a big part of the reason I am where I am today. You know.
That's cool. Just so people are listening and hearing me talk more than Mike. Mike's having some technical difficulties, so he's trying to jump in. So you don't hear from him for a minute. I'm gonna keep the conversation going.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Welcome back.
About fucking time. Hey, what's up?
Oh, it was funny. I was like, wow, Mike really doesn't want to talk about this.
Yeah. Can you see me now, Josiah, or no?
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I don't know what it is. I don't know. But anyways, what I wanted to ask what the fuck over penetration was a long time ago.
Oh
yeah. No, that's a great answer. Sorry.
So over penetration, one of the cardinal rules, one of the 4 firearm safety rules be aware of your target, what lies beyond it, what's to the left and right. What we'll see sometimes is somebody put a round down range, and we have to be responsible for that round until it's done traveling. So for instance, you can probably see behind me, there's another door. Behind that door, that's my daughter's room. So if someone would be coming through my door, and I engaged him with that firearm, the possibility that even if I were to hit him dead center, it would penetrate through into my daughter's room or to the next house or to the house after that. That's a consideration of over penetration.
Got it. Okay.
Seen a lot of shoot throughs and situations like that. We'll see with law enforcement a lot where they kind of surround around a person, they start putting rounds down range, and they end up with some friendly fire, stuff like that. So over penetration is a pretty big concern for home defense. On the other side of me is another apartment butted up right next to my bedroom is their bedroom. On the other side of that, I believe, is their kid's room. I haven't been in there. I don't know. But if I start slinging rounds, in any direction, I have to be responsible and liable for what happens to those rounds after they pass through the bad guy's meat, or if I miss and sling it into the neighbor's house. So big consideration.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And going back, we talked about for home defense and stuff, and you said that your personal favorite was the AR. But what would you recommend to somebody like myself, like a first-time gun buyer who's just trying to protect their family? You know what I mean? Like that, maybe like what's like the most user-friendly as far as like just being safe in a situation that maybe you don't have to be that familiar with the weapon.
I would probably say an AR there. A lot of people will say shotguns because we have this tendency to believe that shotguns, it's point and click, you put it in the right direction and it spreads out and kills everything that's on that side. All the bad stuff goes away. But it's not really realistic. That pattern of that buckshot or whatever it is spreading out about an inch per yard. So if I were to shoot towards that door, it's still coming out at about, a pretty small pattern. So my choice for home defense, especially for new shooters, would probably be an AR platform. You can customize it. You can put on whatever optic you want. You can, make it as easy as I put that red dot on the bad guy's chest, take it off safe, let it rip a little bit. You're going to be able to manage the recoil a little bit better than you would with a shotgun. Okay, you won't have to work the action every time like you would a pump. Now, if you're confident with a pump action shotgun, it's a damn good home defense weapon. I'd say I'd probably lean towards an AR. The other thing is I can use it in different capacities. So if it's my home defense gun and I'm only going to have one gun and shit hits the fan, then I can use it as my shit hits the fan gun. I could take it out and, you know, if I'm in the woods, I can hunt with it. If I have to defend my house, I can. If I can defend my vehicle, I can. All that type of stuff. But I know Reggie talked about it. The rules of 3, you know, fire, water, shelter, that type of thing. My preference is 3, so I'll usually have a pistol, shotgun, and rifle, or a pistol, rifle, and a bolt gun. That's kind of my preferences.
What kind of was that?
A bolt action rifle, like
okay,
think sniper rifle type thing.
Okay.
If I had to choose one rifle, especially for a new shooter, I'd say probably an AR. You'll get, you know, the magazine capacity. You know, in California, you'll get 10 rounds. Everywhere else, they can have grown-up magazines. They can get 30 or larger. Believe it or not, it's easy to miss 10 times with a rifle, even up close. So the capacity makes a big difference. The controllability, being able to work that rifle and it's not going to bounce you all over the place. It's not going to throw you around. If your wife picks it up and shoots it, it's not going to throw her all over the place. You know, in a home defense situation, there's not going to be so many manipulations. You're not going to have to work the slide to the rear. You know, you just click it off safe and it's ready to go. You can mount your weapon-mounted lights. You can put your optics on it, all that type of stuff. So that'd be my pick for sure.
Well, it kind of sounds like it's kind of it's real versatile, huh? That you can do it for a lot of things, and it's still really effective for home defense.
Definitely. So the things I look at, the things I look at when I'm buying a gun or I would tell people to look at it, would be accuracy, usability, make sure it's friendly. You know, there's some really cool guns out there. They're not very practical. You know, a Desert Eagle pistol and 50 caliber. It looks pretty cool, but it's not. You know, it's not a very practical weapon system. You know, accuracy, usability, lethality. Okay, you want to make sure if you're putting bullets into meat, you want it to go away. It means that gal crossed the line. I'm trying to put them out of the fight as quickly as possible so I can deal with other things. I can get to my family. So you want to make sure that it's the appropriate lethality. I want to be able to make sure that I have the right terminal effects, meaning I can put the threat away. Over penetration, and then your ability to gain confidence with that weapon. Okay, how easy is it to use? You know, the usability. Once your wife picks it up, you know, you take her out to the range and she puts some rounds down range and goes, hey, this is actually a lot easier than I thought. You know, or for you, you know, hey, you get out to the range, you put some rounds in it, you start to tighten up the groups a little bit. It looks a lot better. You go, okay, I feel more comfortable with this. And you know, when someone kicks your door in the middle of the night, comfort is going to be something you're seeking out under all that stress. You know, so for me, the AR platform would be my pick.
Right on. I like it. What were you going to say, Josiah? Remember?
Oh, no, I was just going to crack a joke about not putting slugs next to your nightstand for a shotgun. Slugs are they're giant little fat rounds, for those who don't know. And I mean, they work great for hunting, but not so. I'm sure that when we're talking about over penetration, goes straight through a couple walls.
Yeah, punch through a few walls for sure. It'll do some damage to meat, though. That's for sure.
Hey Jay, so I know you talked about us being in California and how it's a lot different, and you know there's a lot of pushback on R4 gun control, I guess. What are the things that, like, if you had to sit down with somebody who was completely against guns and you were going to have like a non-emotional conversation with them, like what would be the type of opening you'd want to like give them to like logically tell them like hey, this could save your life?
I actually pretty recently had this conversation with a lady from San Francisco. She was leaning a little bit left, and basically she goes, "Why would you ever need a gun? You know, guns scare me. I've seen them before, and it scared the hell out of me." And I go, "Okay, well, you've been in situations where you were scared. Yeah. You felt like you couldn't defend yourself. Yeah. Do you think a gun could have made you feel more comfortable in a situation like that?" Wait a minute. I said, well, that's a big part of the reason we have guns, to be able to protect ourselves, to be able to feel confident, be comfortable in our own homes, that type of thing. The idea that we're going to get all all the guns in the world and take them away from people, and you know they're never going to show up on the streets again. It's just not practical. You know, it's not realistic. I think guns are a wretched, disgusting creation. I love them. I've built my life on them, but they're a wretched, disgusting thing. But they're not going anywhere. So if there's human beings out there, yeah, I mean, I've seen the effects of them. You know, I've had a lot of people direct them at me. I've used them on human beings. I've seen what it does to people. They're a nasty thing. They're one of the worst human creations ever. They have some great benefits to them, but you know, they're just a nasty thing that we've created. You know, it makes it pretty easy to hunt and stuff like that, but the human heart is so twisted that we know how people are going to use them. If those things are out there, there should be, you know, a level playing field for people who are looking to defend themselves, their family, to be of service to their community, their people. You don't want to be the one guy that doesn't have a gun when you're trying to do the right thing, you know?
Yeah. It's almost like saying, no fighting ever. Nobody can ever fight. Let's just hope the criminals don't, you know, use their physical bodies against you. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Like eliminate jujitsu altogether just because some bad people physically attack other people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like how you put it to the level playing field. That's what I was thinking. It's like, well, I mean, first of all, taking all the guns away. That's kind of what we tried to do with drugs. That obviously didn't work, you know. And then, you know, like right now, it's not a level playing field because most of the people who have guns are not most of them, but the ones that are going to use them. There's more bad people, I think, with guns than good people with guns right now. And I think that if that was to be changed, like it wouldn't, like I think things would, bad things might happen less.
Yeah, you can see that statistically when you look at places with more gun ownership. As an example, there was a terrorist who tried to attack a bunch of guys in Texas. I think they were doing something asinine. They were being assholes, and they were having I think it was a Draw Muhammad or something contest. These terrorists heard about it. They pulled up in a vehicle, got out with their assault rifles, and they got schwacked before they even got to the door.
Damn.
Statistically, if you look at areas with higher gun ownership, responsible gun ownership, the crime rate starts to decline in those areas. You know, it's just everybody's nicer when everyone's got guns. You know, when you know everyone's got guns.
When there's a threat.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you think that there's a way? You seem like a little bit on both sides. You understand the how terrifying a gun can be, but you're also still avidly a user of guns. Do you think that there is a way to minimize the criminal element from getting guns? Do you think that there's a method or something that could be done to reduce that?
That's a rough one, man. That's a big topic, you know. And we see the things that people have tried over and over again, and it seems like those, you know, in the areas where they apply those laws, those really harsh laws, California, Detroit, Baltimore, the crime rate keeps skyrocketing, keeps getting worse. The gun violence is up. I don't know, man. That's a really tough one. I think that there are some probably common sense gun laws out there. Things like screening for domestic violence, you know, screening for, you know, felonies in your background, that type of stuff. That's not out of line. And you'll hear people say every gun law is an infringement. I understand the principle of it, but something like a convicted felon who's, you know, who's got battery charges and domestic violence charges against his, you know, a significant other, we probably shouldn't give that guy a firearm the same day in a Walmart. So that's a big discussion that's probably above my pay grade, but my stance on it is there is room for compromise on both sides. Not that we want to compromise our rights, but there's probably people out there that shouldn't be allowed firearms.
Mm. I've always thought maybe some kind of mental health check as well. I think that's an underutilized thing because it's generally just your background, and somebody who, you know, is premeditating or thinking about using it in a terrible way is not going to exactly, they don't always have a criminal background or, you know, show any particular signs on a waiver, you know?
Yeah, that's a difficult one too, because we've tried that several times. You know, there've been some places where they tried that. I know there was a lot of concern for veterans who'd come back from suffer from PTSD. They were losing some of their gun rights in certain places. But at the same time, if you look at some of the worst shootings, some of the worst incidences, Adam Lanza, Newtown shooter, or shot up all the kids in the elementary school. Adam Lanza.
Oh, yeah.
In Newtown?
Was that Sandy Hook or no?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Sandy Hook. So his mother had been begging and pleading for somebody to institutionalize her kid. You know, she said, hey, he's dangerous. He's threatened me. He's been violent with me. You know, he'd been on all kinds of different drugs, SSRIs, things like that. And, you know, the days of institutionalizing people are pretty much over. So that never happened. And the result was some guy, you know, stole a firearm, killed his mother, went into a school and shot up a bunch of kids. The Virginia Tech shooter, same thing. He had some really serious mental health issues. His psychologist had noted a bunch of it, said, hey, he's got some really violent ideations. You know, this kid's going to be trouble. He's going to cause an incident. You know, so it's kind of a balancing act of who's going to apply those laws, who makes the decisions. Is it, you know, is it a judge? Is it a psychologist? I don't know, man. It's just
like a really tricky one, like a very tricky one, especially when you start talking about mental disorders and illnesses. Like it's like, where do you draw the line there? Like what's okay to still purchase a gun, what's not okay? That's a lot of the stuff, right? It's just really tricky to like know where to draw that line at. Yeah.
And you know, I tend to lean towards preserving rights over taking them away because of the faults of the few. It's definitely indicators, you know, like if you take a look at most of the active shooters and active shooters, active killers, whatever you want to call them, you're going to see some pretty significant patterns. Social isolation, you know, the kids that are really withdrawn, they'll consistently, they're playing violent video games, they're searching out violent media, watching people get their heads cut off and stuff like that. Socially isolated, they're oftentimes bullied. Their family structure is usually pretty compromised. The father's out of the picture, their mom or dad are fighting, stuff like that. So it's hard for me to say that we shouldn't, take a look at mental health, because had we taken a look at some of those mental health cases, maybe we could have prevented some of those really bad tragedies. Same thing with Columbine shooters, Dylan Roof. Those guys, they had all the same indicators beforehand. And they kind of slipped under the radar. So again, I err towards preserving the rights than taking them away, but I'm not unsympathetic to people that are saying we have to make some changes. But
yeah. And then go ahead, Mike.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. No, well, I think I like how you said the fault of few, because, I notice a lot of times that seems like we make legislation and kind of like restrict the rights of a lot of, like, all of our people based on outliers, where it's like, there's like a few people who acted out of line, did some crazy shit, and now we're making sure nobody has the opportunity to ever get close to doing that again, and it kind of infringes on people's rights. And I think that's a really good way to put it, the faults of few.
The faults of the few, yeah. That's kind of my mindset about it. I think what's important is that, especially on the far right, we have this idea that it shouldn't even be a discussion. Every gun law is an infringement, and I sympathize with that. And on the far left, they're saying, nobody needs a gun, nobody needs a rifle, nobody needs this, nobody needs that, nobody needs more than 10 rounds. And instead of a conversation, we're kind of polarized about it, and nobody's talking through it and making a point. And I think that's more dangerous than than the reverse of just sitting down and talking with each other devoid of emotion.
Yeah, that's damn near impossible though.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the politicians want that division. They like that division. Whereas generally, even when I talk to somebody that I disagree with, I can just have a conversation with them, and most Americans in general are fairly neutral for the most part. they might have these strong opinions, but when you get down and start actually asking them, like they might come out with a very loud statement like, oh, and nobody should own guns, and then you start talking to them a little bit, they realize that was just some propaganda. The same as, no, you shouldn't put any rights on guns. You start talking to that person, and all of a sudden you're like, well, okay, some people shouldn't have guns. It's that polarization within politics.
Yeah, the media too. The media's got a big part of it, and what's silly about it, what drives me nuts about it is that, if you're, say for instance, if you're a conservative, if you're on the right, you can't be conservative about some things and not conservative about, like, if people are like, oh, you believe in climate change? I bet you want to take my guns away too. I'm like, what are we talking about?
Not even the same subject.
Discussion. Yeah. You're either hard on the right or you're hard on the left. And I think that's dangerous. It's making a pretty big rift in our country, and we're not solving problems that we could with just, less emotional conversations.
Yeah, that group thing.
Yeah.
Well, I know this is probably not what we brought you to talk about. What are the types of things that you want to talk about? Like when it comes to guns, if you have this platform, what are the important things on your mind that you wish people knew?
Yeah, I actually wrote something about that. I was going to actually bring it up. Buying a firearm is not going to solve the problem itself. It's not going to make you a defender of your family. Buying a pistol and sticking it in a safe, or buying a rifle and sticking it in your closet, it doesn't make you prepared. Okay. If anything, it makes it a little more dangerous that you brought a firearm into the house, with your kids running around, or your wife, or somebody might have the ability to use it on you. Not to say that you shouldn't, but you should definitely seek out some training. It is a big responsibility. If you're bringing a weapon system into the house, if you get your CCW and you're going out into the world, it should be, in service to your family, in service to your people. It's not something that, it's not I bought a gun, so I check that box. I'll be ready when somebody kicks my door in at 4 a.m. Those situations are a little more difficult than people tend to think. Yeah, a lot. It's really emotional. We see this all the time. We see people kill each other on accident. We've seen criminals that are poorly trained kill people. It's not terribly difficult to kill somebody with a firearm. Living with it's the hard part afterwards. So it's a commitment that, you're gonna be responsible with it. You're going to be safe with it. You're going to store it or stage it correctly in the house so that nobody can get to it. As soon as this coronavirus thing kicked off, a bunch of people who before that were kind of anti-gun started shooting me text messages like, hey, can you get me a gun? Get me a Glock? Or they'll say, hey, I went out and bought a gun today. I'll have it now so my family's safe. Hey, man, that's not the case.
Like that. Yeah.
It's an incredibly dangerous thing to own a firearm and not train with it, to not be proficient with it.
Yeah.
Train yourself mentally, get yourself mentally prepared. Just spend the time with it, and don't think that it's going to solve all your problems having a firearm locked up in your house. If you're not prepared, you're not prepared.
Yeah, bringing it back to like a jiu-jitsu situation, most people who don't train have this belief that they imagine in a certain situation that they could defend or throw a good punch, or they might imagine that thing, but the second they get into a real fight, it's much scarier. There's adrenaline, but with a gun, I imagine it's like you said. I liked that you have to be mentally prepared, because, like, I'll be honest, even with me owning a gun, I don't know if I've actually taken the time to prepare myself for the thought of what might happen after if I ever use that in the defense of my home, like emotionally preparing myself for that kind of situation. And I need to own that and, do better training myself personally.
Yeah.
So
I think that in terms of jiu-jitsu, it's kind of like jiu-jitsu, but imagine giving somebody their purple belt and all the skills that come along with it, except for the humility of getting your ass kicked on the mat, except for the time and dedication that you put in there, except for, it's almost like, hey, here's a purple belt and all the skills that go along with it. What's somebody going to want to do with it? They're going to go out to the bar and want to fight with it, because they don't understand what it's like to actually be, on the mats training their ass off. So it's a little bit more dangerous in that regard, but it's pretty much the same thing. Like you're putting this capacity into a person, and if they're not, mentally, physically, and spiritually prepared for it, it's going to be a problem in the long run. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that gets overlooked is people go, okay, well, I have my gun now. I'm ready. I checked that box. I'm ready. My family's safe. Hey, man, it's not the case.
Yeah. I could tell you've had this conversation before because you got a lot of good little one-liners. I'm like, damn, that's good. Like being handed a purple belt but not having the humility, like that's fucking huge. You know what I mean?
I actually thought of that this morning while I was sitting down eating breakfast.
Good, dude.
It's a great analogy.
You got to frame that one on the wall or something, dude. That's a good one.
Works with Jujitsu guys,
Yeah. So if you were so if somebody was going to come down, I mean, who can come train with you at training at Glock? Is it anybody, or can sign up to do that program, or is it for certain people?
Yeah. So even if you're a new gun owner, you can come out with us. There's kind of a screening process. We're opening up some new courses. We're going to do a low profile, like a concealed carry course, stuff like that. So if you go through the link, I'll put up the link. It's glocktraining.com. You can kind of just apply. You look and see on the calendar when there's classes coming up. Sign up for the class, but that's Glock specific. So if we're talking about handguns, Glock is the best handgun ever made. Obviously, I might be a little bit biased, but that would be my pick for Glock, for a pistol. But so you would need a Glock pistol, you would need a couple mag pouches, you need ammo for a 2-day training course, and you can come out with us and get it on. We're going to crack down on safety in the beginning of the course. It'll be safe all the way through, and then it'll start kind of at the basics, the fundamental level, and then it'll just start to pick up speed, and we'll give you some really cool techniques with the pistol. Now, those classes are going to be geared towards using the pistol more efficiently. It's not going to be a tactical thing where we're teaching you how to kick in somebody's door or drag people out of a car or stuff like that. It's just about the weapon system. There are some good home defense classes out there as well. A lot of this stuff, I mean, I'm watching videos every day. I'm reading books all the time, stuff like that. A lot of that training you can get through YouTube, through reading. Just make sure it's reputable, good information. And then once you do get some training, you can kind of bring those things up. I have probably 4 or 5 notebooks full of stuff from different classes I've been to over the last 2 or 3 years. I write everything down, and if I have questions about it, I bring it to the instructor right away and say, hey, you said when I do this, I should do this. Get my questions answered, and I'll keep a log of that. I keep a log of my training. I write down how much I'm dry firing. I like to shoot competitively. I shoot in matches, not lately with this coronavirus thing going on, but really easy just to find a local range, and you'll get out there with your pistol. You can shoot pistol caliber carbine. Sometimes you can shoot your rifle in matches, stuff like that. And it just gives you invaluable experience in how to run that gun. I like to shoot IDPA matches, International Defensive Pistol Association. So they'll set up a bunch of cardboard targets, and you move through a situation. It might be you're coming out of the grocery store and there's 4 shooters. You engage all those 4 targets while you're moving to try and get to your vehicle, something like that. But it's a good way it's almost like going to a jiu-jitsu competition to prove your skills. You can do really well in the gym, but the first time you put on a gi and get in the mats, and somebody who's not playing along with you is on top of you, thumping on you. It's the same kind of thing with a shooting competition. It's a really good way to prove your training, to measure your training. I write down when I have a bad stage. I write down when I have a good stage. And at the end of the day, I'll go home and write everything down, what I can do better. And then I'll do that in my dry fire, for the next week or so, something like that. I just went off on a tangent. I don't remember what the first question was.
No, that was great.
I don't know if I even remember the question. It's all right, but I enjoyed it. I was listening to the whole thing. I was following.
No, it was really good.
Pharaoh freaks out and wakes up like, what did I just say?
No, it's a lot of good information. Definitely a lot personally for myself to think about in training, and I think we'll probably be talking later about getting myself some better training. Yeah,
no, you and I both. Well, going back to the jiu-jitsu thing, and how we're comparing it, a lot of our listeners do jiu-jitsu as well. In jiu-jitsu, it kind of seems like you train for a long time and you still suck. You know what I mean? It's like you gotta train a lot to be able to like compete with people. But at the same point, I think if somebody was on the mats for like 3 months, they'd probably do well in a street fight. They would probably take out most people.
Exactly.
Training somebody would need in firearms to be able, like, to be proficient enough to defend themselves.
I think I got most of what he's saying.
He's breaking up. I think he's asking the duration or the type of training. Like we talk about in Jujitsu, like you get your blue belt, or you get a year in, and you're better off than the vast public. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but you were asking what's the equivalent in this training?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me better?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, pretty much I was just saying like how long is how long would you say that it would take to train in shooting to be proficient enough to defend yourself? Because it seems like a lot of them are like, I know it's time is an issue, but like 2-day courses and stuff like that. So there's not really a place where you can go just train, like every day of the week. Like you can go to the jiu-jitsu gym and get rolls in every day. So like how I don't know, just what's the equivalent time, I guess?
So yeah, like with jiu-jitsu, the average blue belt's gonna stomp a mud hole and just most people out there, So the equivalent would be, if you get that firearm, you go out to a reputable trainer. You go out and it kind of depends on the platform too. Pistols are a little bit more difficult. They take a little bit more time in training. Shotgun's a little easier to get good with. Rifle's pretty easy to get good with. But I'd say, go out, find a reputable trainer, instructor. Go get a 2 or 3 day class in with them. I'll link some really good instructors in the bio as well, outside of Glock. Guys like Matt Graham, John Lovell, Warrior Poet Society. You can look these guys up on YouTube, a lot of them too. And these are guys that I go out and train with to keep myself sharp too. So I'll put a couple links, send them to you guys. But I'd say go out, get yourself a class, a weekend class in. And then a lot of the stuff that you learn there, if you're logging it in, if you're writing it down, you can do most of that stuff at home during your dry fire. So I try to dry fire 3 days a week. So basically unload the pistol, make sure it's completely safe, point it in the safest direction you can, and do all the things you did in that class. And you're going to be able to practice just about everything you did in class except for managing the recoil, actually feeling that round break in your hands. So through dry fire, you can make some really huge improvements through dry fire. I'd say 6 months of dedicated training is going to make you pretty proficient, where you're going to feel a lot more confident. Every time you go to the range, you're going to see a little bit of improvements. 6 months to a year, you should be feeling pretty good about it. And then maybe get out there and do a shooting competition here or there, so you feel a little bit more confident under stress. They have this. I'll show it to you. But this thing here I found. This is a buzzer. So, they'll say you'll get on the line. They'll say, shooter ready. You're looking at all the targets. And as soon as that blue box comes out and they hit the button and it makes the beep noise. See here. Get on the timer. Well, of course, it's broken now. Okay, as soon as I hear that noise, it turns a little bit of stress on. Okay, even all the experience I have, and I'll start making mistakes. I'll start going faster than I'm capable of. It's kind of like sparring, where, you get in there, you're looking across the ring, you're looking at a guy sparring, and you're like, I've done this 1,000 times. But as soon as somebody cracks you in the face, you get a little bit of jitters. A shooting competition is a good place to proof your skill set under stress. And a lot of guys, especially guys that come from my background, military, law enforcement, that type of stuff, they'll say, oh, don't go to a shooting competition. It'll get you killed. It doesn't do anything for you. Bullshit. Okay? I'm not going to get stressed out. I've been shot at in real life. Bullshit. Okay?
What's the argument there? What's the argument for that? That doesn't really make sense to me.
Typically, it's people with big egos that don't want to get beat in a shooting competition. That's my take on it. And I was that guy for a while too, where I came back and I said, oh man, I've used my rifle in combat. I've been in gunfights. I don't need to do this stuff. And my buddy finally talked me into it. I went to a match, and as soon as I got up there, I started getting a little jitters. It's kind of like a match coming up or a fight coming up. I went, wait a minute. Hold on, I'm getting some jitters here. And the guy before me was probably 60, 70 years old, and he just crushed it, burned it down, whooped my ass, outshot the hell out of me that day. And I just had to, I had to kind of reframe everything, go, okay, maybe I'm not as good as I am. Maybe that's a little more stressful than I thought it was. I need to put some more effort into it. I need to up my training, that type of thing. So it is a good stressor. It's a good way to make sure your skill set holds up under a little bit of stress. And I'm telling you, as soon as this little box comes out, even now, I turn into Ricky Bobby and I start going a little too fast. Or, yeah, I don't do it with my hands.
It's kind of like the undefeated in street fights guy, right? Telling you not to do you don't need to train.
Yeah, I don't need to train. The reason I don't do UFC is because the ref wouldn't be able to stop me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is cool, man. So what I'm gathering from this, because the whole thing is just it's a really intimidating aspect for me because it's something I haven't done. But it seems like the most important thing is just to be comfortable, right, with the weapon, whatever gun you choose to have, but to be comfortable enough around it and know how to be safe with it and feel safe with it.
Yeah, you have to understand it. You have to understand what it's capable of, good and bad. It's capable of protecting you. It's capable of, shooting through the wall and hitting my daughter. You have to feel comfortable with it. You have to have a good understanding of it. You have to feel comfortable with yourself and have a good understanding of yourself as well. One thing I'll tell people is, hey, do you feel like you're capable of using a gun to kill another human being? And sometimes, especially women, they'll say, well, no, I wouldn't want to use a gun to kill anyone. I say, okay, well, now imagine somebody's trying to pull your daughter out of the window and, snatch your daughter or your kid or hurt your family.
Change real quick.
Yeah, they change real quick. They go, well, yeah, of course. And so, okay, then, you are capable of using a firearm for the right reasons. Or I'll say, hey, do you feel like you could, are you ready to use that to defend yourself? And guys will go, hell yeah, I'll smoke some guys right now. And I go, okay, well, what's your real motivation right now? Are you putting a gun in your hands to feel better about yourself, or are you putting a gun in your hands to feed your ego, or are you really trying to defend your family? You got to be comfortable with yourself. You got to understand yourself, your capacity for it. You got to be right with, your religious beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, with yourself. It's a big commitment, and I think that's one of the things that gets swept under the rug. People don't understand just how big of a commitment it is, owning a firearm. So,
yeah. It seems, that's the thing that keeps me I just something I really want to be sure about. And I still have some uncertainty. It's not uncertainty. It's more like not non-confidence. I'm like, oh, dude, I don't know. I feel like I'd fuck up and just ruin something.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a lot that comes with it. Safety and storage. We talk about safety all the time. The four firearm safety rules. Treat, never, keep. Treat every weapon as if it's loaded. Never point your weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Keep the weapon on safe until you're ready to fire. Be aware of your target and what lies beyond it. All those considerations. And then storage, storage versus staging. How are you going to, storage would be, I have a gun safe, the gun's unloaded. It's locked away somewhere. Staging would be, hey, this weapon's in a locked case right next to my nightstand, but it's loaded in case I need it right away. Somebody kicks the door in at 4 a.m. Hey, you're not going to be able to unlock the safe, load that thing up, get it ready, and get into the fight in that time frame. So storage versus staging. Personally, I like to stage 1 or 2 firearms in the house at all times, so that way, if something bad happens, I'm not behind the power curve. And all the times I've needed a firearm, I never needed it in a couple minutes. You're not gonna need it in a little bit. Those things happen fast. So storage versus staging, how to be safe doing both. If you put in the research, it's not a problem. If you do the research, spend a little money on a safe. Where they have biometric safes. If you own a pistol, you stick your hand on it, push a couple buttons, the door pops right open. You can pull the pistol out and get it into the fight.
Is that how you stage? Is that how you stage? Do the biometric? Because my immediate concern is safety of young ones who pick it up and don't know any better or too young to understand what it is, just goofing around or whatever, that kind of thing. How do you stage safely?
So my daughter's 4. So, I know what she can reach, what she can get into, what she can't. A lot of times I'll keep things up high. I like to use a safe, or not so much a safe, like I'm going to lock it away and leave it in there unstored, but a little biometric, like you stick your hand on it, hit a couple buttons, the door flies open, you can get to the pistol right away. That's typically what I like to do. There's a big problem with people not being safe with their firearms, or sticking it in a nightstand, or sticking it under their mattress or under their pillow, and kids getting a hold of it. So just do the research on how to stage versus how to store. Staging, that's my preferred. I'll typically stage. So for instance, my pistol here, I'll stage it inside of the holster so that when I reach inside the safe, I'm not going to accidentally get on that trigger too early. That trigger well is still covered up. It's not going to be a problem. Okay, and I keep one loaded. I keep one in the chamber all the time. My thoughts on that, some people will say, whether CCW or staging the pistol, they'll say, don't put it around in the chamber. My thoughts on that is like, it's like trying to put your seatbelt on right before the car crashes. Those things happen too fast and too violent. I want to be as prepared as possible. So I'll stick it in the safe, cover the trigger guard, and I can just reach in there, get rid of the holster, and get into the fight right away. But I definitely recommend, and I guess I can look up some cheap or reasonably priced, I won't say cheap, but reasonably priced safes and stuff like that you can put into, in your nightstand. You can put it up high above the refrigerator is one place I put one of my safes. So, I'll have one in the front room by the kitchen. I can get to that pretty quickly. My daughter can't get up there. No one's going to go in there and poke around. I just hit the safe, unload it or unlock it, get to the pistol and get in the fight. I'll keep one in the bedroom the same way. I like to keep a rifle staged as well, up high, locked up, out of reach, kind of hidden away from everything. But if you're being safe about it, if you're putting thought into it, it's easier than it seems to do it safe.
That's cool. So I'm glad we're finally getting. It took us a little while to get into a flow here, but finally getting into a good flow. Do you have? I see you got a couple things there. You're not going to be able to show because we're not going to be able to do the video. But do you have anything that you can talk us through right now? Like, do you have next to you, or anything you might want to show us?
Well, Well, yeah, I got a couple things over here.
Yeah. I know nothing about them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you what it does, what it's for, what it holds, and everything like that.
Well, yeah, I'll talk pistols for a minute. So my recommendations for a pistol, and honestly, pistol is probably the second best way to go, if you ask me. And depending on what you're using it for, I set this down. I'll clear it out so everybody knows it's safe. I'll stick it down in front of me. Pistol would probably be my second choice. And this is something that kind of surprised me recently with this coronavirus thing going on. A pistol is concealable. You can take it with you to the store. You can take it with you, in your vehicle. It's a little less obtrusive. You're not walking around with a big rifle on you, something like that. When this whole thing kicked off, I was kind of surprised. There was the panic. There was the fear people were going to start getting crazy. It was almost like teetering on that shit hits the fan kind of thing. And I was thinking to myself, man, when do you break the rifle out versus when do of course I'm going to go around with the pistol to places I need when I'm worried about it. And I'm thinking, man, when do you break the rifle out versus, is it going to be a quick break in society where, holy shit, everything went sideways. I can bring my rifle out and, everything fell apart. So I'm not going to look like a psychopath and get arrested versus we were kind of teetering there for a minute on shit could really go sideways really bad. A pistol was pretty nice there, for that situation. So it kind of made me reevaluate my shit hits the fan plan a little bit. Obviously, I'm going to run with the pistol. I'm pretty comfortable with them, whenever I go into situations like that. But I was like, man, maybe I should give this pistol a little more thought as to its place in the shit hits the fan scenario. For me, I think this is the best pistol ever made. This is the Glock Model 45. It's one of the newest ones that we released. So there are some new considerations. The pistol-mounted optics are becoming really, really popular. This is an aim point acro. It'll sit right on top of the slide just like that. What it does, there's a laser or a dot inside of it, so it makes aiming a lot easier, especially for new shooters. If you've been putting in a lot of time on lining up sights and shooting rifle and pistol with iron sights for a long time, it's going to take you some time to get used to. What we're finding is with new shooters, if you stick that red dot on top, it's a lot like, when you watch Call of Duty and you stick the dot right in the middle of someone's chest and let it rip. It's a lot easier to aim this thing once you get used to finding the dot inside that reticle. So the dot would present right in the middle of there. You wake up in the middle of the night, someone's in the house, pistol's on, I point the dot at them, and the round's going to go where the dot is pointing. As long as I'm doing my job as a shooter, making sure that my grip is good, my fundamentals are good. So again, this is Glock 45 with an aim point acro. That'd be my preferred optic system. Okay, red dot optic. On the bottom here, you're going to see a weapon mounted light. Oh, I guess you're not going to see it. We don't do the video, but this is a stream light. So it's got a bright light that's really easy to activate. You can see that there. You can put a laser on as well. So a laser that you would see on the target. I'm not a big fan of lasers. I think they're better cat toys than they are. If it's IR laser, like you're wearing night vision and nobody else can see it, that's a good thing. But as far as lasers go, I'm not a big fan. But I would recommend a good weapon-mounted light. Streamlight TLRs are good. Surefire X300 or X3000, all good weapon-mounted lights. Same thing for a rifle or a shotgun. I'm kind of weird about light. I got 2 or 3 flashlights. I got them staged throughout the house, good tactical lights. If I did get into a situation with a pistol, even if I have a weapon-mounted light, I want to have another light with me so that I can do all my admin tasks, or I don't have to point my weapon at whatever I'm shining the light on. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend a light for your pistol, for your rifle, for your shotgun. But yeah, this is what I had sitting next to me. So that's a Glock 45 with an aim point acro and a stream light on the bottom. That's kind of my go-to setup now.
How much did that? Sorry to interrupt. How much did that setup cost, if I can ask?
So the pistol's probably in the $500 range, $550, maybe $600 range. Pretty reasonably priced for what you're getting out of the pistol. The lights, you can probably get a good one in the area of $200. The optic, the red dot that's on top, that's probably gonna be the most expensive thing. So I think it's probably in the $600 range. Yeah, same thing with rifles. Is typically what they say is, the optic on top of the rifle, whether it be a sniper rifle or an AR, should cost, more than the rifle did. That's where you got a good optic. The aim point acro is really reasonably priced. That's my go-to. The other one, I'd recommend, that's a Trigicon RMR. So this one's a little bit more battle proven. Okay, they've been running them on rifles for a long time. They'll put it on top of a different optic so that it's a little easier to access inside of a building or something like that. They're pretty well combat proven, reliable, still pretty close to the same price range. I'm not sure. I got gifted these from Glock, hooked it up, so I didn't have to. I know, they hooked me up, but I think it's pretty close to the same price range, $500, $600, something like that. But it makes shooting worlds easier. I think that we're starting to all go that direction in the shooting world, just because of the ease of it. I'm still an iron sights guy. I'm still getting used to the pistol mounted optics, but they're definitely worth it. It'll make it a lot easier. Same thing with putting a red dot on a rifle. It just makes it a lot easier to, put the dot on the bad stuff and make it go away.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the what I've seen a lot more in recent years that I maybe just wasn't aware of before is the sorry guys. Hang on. Was the the competition aspect of it or like the learning, like the technical aspect of it. You know, like when it just comes to shooting, I don't know if like shooting and keep my family safe, it definitely interests me. But now that there's the fact that I can go take classes and get better at it and learn how to be really proficient with it, that like really turns me on.
You're breaking up a little.
But like it just. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There. So I keep going on these long-winded things and I'm breaking up. Basically, long story short is I think it's really exciting that there are avenues out there to teach you to learn techniques and to learn to be better at this, as opposed to just getting it. You know.
Yeah, it's a lot like jiu-jitsu, man. Once you get in there, you just realize the depth of it. And I shoot with guys now that, you know, I'm a pretty experienced guy. I put in a lot of work, and there's guys out there that I just can't touch. My boss now, I can't touch him. I can't get near the guy. He's so much better technically. He's faster. He's better everywhere. And it gives me something to strive towards all the time. You know, it's where we're putting in the work all the time. It's a lot like jiu-jitsu in that regard. There's just always room for improvement. You know, you can get a lot better that way.
I love it, man.
Once you catch the bug, it's like jiu-jitsu, man.
Yeah. Yep. That's awesome. You got anything else to say?
No, I'm good. He answered all my questions.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I'm sure we could dive a little deeper into this. Sometimes I was struggling at points to find the right question to ask you, but you know, there's just so many. So this is a really big unknown area for me, which is probably nice for me to be on this, because sometimes you forget what people don't know, you know, because you're in a world where people know certain things. But yeah, I think we did a lot of good of letting people know things that they may not been aware of before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote out a whole outline and I completely abandoned that son of a bitch as soon as we started talking. But I think we covered just about all of it. Another thing I would say, get some medical training. Okay, I know Reggie brought that up as well. Find a stop the bleed class. Invest in a good tourniquet, a good blowout kit. Is what we call our medical kits. If you're going to be in a situation where bullets are flying, you should know how to stop the bleed, how to take care of those problems. Whether it be you get hit, your family member gets hit, or you want to, you know, somebody breaks into the house, you put rounds into them, and you're trying to render aid afterwards. You know, it's worth learning to stop the bleed. And even, you know, car accidents, all the, you know, mechanical injuries, all those things, it's just worth it to know. That's another big thing I'd advise people to go out and do is find a good medical class, invest in some medical gear, you know, a tourniquet, some gauze, stuff like that. Really easy thing to do. It's going to make you more prepared, especially if you're into the prepping world as well. Visualize, dry fire, get ready mentally, man. That's the big thing. Prepare yourself. Spend the time with the gun. Spend the time with instruction. I'll send you guys over a couple of really good instructors, and most of those instructors will have videos on YouTube that you can. It's like watching Keenan Roll or Dean Lister teach on YouTube. If you're doing it correctly, it's, you know, it's going to up your game and not hurt it. You know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Well, I want to thank you, Jay. I really appreciate this, and been very informative for myself.
Yeah, me as well, man. And yeah, it's been really nice how we can kind of equate everything back to jiu-jitsu. I think it makes it a lot more easier for a lot of our listeners to really understand what it's like.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. It was kind of a fun thing for me too. It makes it a little easier for me to explain some of the things I was thinking. Not all of the crowd I teach is you know, jiu-jitsu guys or MMA guys, so it made it pretty easy for them.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, hey, thanks, dude. I appreciate it. I know we're all going to be in touch with you pretty soon because I know it's something we're all interested in. I can't wait. So, you know, we'll see you soon, dude.
Well, if you guys got more questions, man, round 2, let me know. I'll come back, whatever you need, man.
And sorry, I had some technical difficulties, so it's a little choppy there. Next time it'll be better in person next time.
That sounds good when all this nonsense is over, man, and this run's over.
Yeah. All right.
Fellas, appreciate it.
All right.